What up, YouTube? We in this thing. I am your host. You got Marcus Maxey up top. Thomas Razor down below. We here with another reaction video. This reaction video is Jordan Peterson comments on the passing of the Queen. Queen Elizabeth, that is. I'm ready to hear what Jordan Peterson got to say. I'm really a big supporter of Jordan Peterson and you know what I'm saying, the way he teaches, first off, and the things that he's teaching to the world, man, like, he's really trying to save the Western civilization because at this moment, we're lost as a civilization. Like, modern day living is the most weirdest, corrupt-ish I've ever seen. And it's in a hole, bro. Like, we're lost as a people. So I really, you know what I'm saying, appreciate the work that he's doing to try to save these people. Marcus, I don't know if you watch Jordan very often, but I know I do, and I read his books.
Had the pleasure.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and bust it to y'all. Look, man, Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules of Life, man. Then you got Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, and then you got The Savage Messiah, how Jordan Peterson is saving the Western civilization. So he do got plenty of books out. These are only 3 of them. But he has plenty more books out, and they all go into details on, like, you know what I'm saying, basically just how to act and what, you know what I'm saying, which way, because he's actually a psychologist, so it's not like he's just this guy that's trying to make money off writing books. Like, this, he got his degree in this, and he understands, like, the reaction to certain people and what bothers and what doesn't bother. And I think he took his climb to fame when the kids did a protest or some mess like that at his school up in Canada. Actually, it was one kid, he wanted to go by she and her pronouns, you know, the pronoun stuff. So I don't really want to touch on that because I know how the cancel community can get. And so I don't really want to touch on the she, her, him, hey, ooh, I, and it, a, and God, who people. I'm going to let y'all be who y'all are, man. Do what you do. I'm just letting you know you're lost. But anyways, he blew up off of that because the kid took it to another level and tried to get the man fired because he wouldn't call a boy, a naturally, you know what I'm saying, a biology, genetically, whatever you want to call it. He was born a boy, but he wants to be called she, her. I don't have time to be trying to figure out everybody's pronouns if I'm a daggum professor in a college and I got classes with 50-something people in it, and now I got to remember that there's one boy in my class that want to be called a she, her. I can't call you a him, he. Like, yeah, and that's how he blew up. So it took off, and that's Jordan Peterson. But we're going to get into this video, the Queen passing. I think it's going to be really interesting. I guess we're going to put Marcus on the Jordan Peterson train real quick, and we're going to get to it, man. Let's get in this reaction.
How could the death of the Queen affect the boundaries between English communities around the world?
How could the death of the Queen affect the boundaries between English-speaking communities around the world? Well, I suppose it could go one of 2 ways. You know, one is that, and this would be a terrible thing, it's such bad timing in some sense, you know, I think, for what happened today to have happened. I'm a great admirer of the constitutional monarchy system. I think there's a wisdom about it, especially the way that your country has managed it, which is more, it's worked better than how any other country's managed it, maybe ever. That's really something. You know, there are obviously monarchical systems, constitutional monarchies still left in Europe, but they're kind of a pale reflection of what you've got in the UK. And when Tammy and I were in Kentucky a couple of months ago, we were invited there by the former ambassador from the US to Canada, and she was, and her husband were fundraisers for Donald Trump.
You said what?
My man's shoes are cold.
Oh yeah, on me.
And
yeah,
he runs a coal mine, so you can imagine why he's Republican. And so we were at the Kentucky Derby, which is quite the show. The Americans, they're very theatrical, man. They can put on a show like no one else. And the Kentucky Derby is definitely a show. People wear the most preposterous outfits, you know, these wild lime green suits and these amazing sort of Victorian costumes for the women, and they're all dressed up. There's like 160,000 people at the racetrack, and it's quite the spectacle. And we were up above the racetrack, about 3 floors, in this glassed-in cafe. And the second day we were there, Trump was going to come to the cafe, to the restaurant. And I had flown out that morning to give a commencement address at this conservative college in northern Michigan. And then I flew back, and just after I got there, they closed the airport. So I just got in. They closed the airports because the president is coming to town, the former president, but they still call him the president. And so really the whole city, in some real sense, was locked down. And then I got to the Derby, back to the Derby, and just in time, because they're going to...
Daggum commercial.
To really get math and science?
You gotta do it. That's why
They're going to lock down the whole Derby. So that meant no one, 160,000 people, no one gets in or out. And then the army came in, and there was like 300 guys in camouflage, quite armed, and they were taking up their stations. And this is like 3 hours before Trump showed up. And then the Secret Service came in, and by that time I had made it upstairs to the restaurant where Tammy was, and she'd been there waiting, and everyone was buzzing away about the fact that Trump was coming. And the atmosphere was electric, you know. And I thought, sitting there, I thought, this must have been what it was like to be, well, around the Kennedys, say, in the 1960s, that level of fame. I've been around famous people a lot now, and there are definitely tiers of fame, you know. There's not famous, and that's normal. And then there's celebrities that are maybe known locally and nationally, and then there are celebrities that are known internationally, and then there's celebrities like the Queen, who everyone everywhere in the world knows, who among famous people, they're hyper famous. And Trump is in that category. And he's a very strange person in that category, I would say, because he's not just famous for being president, which is already something that makes you pretty damn famous, but he was really famous as a businessman before that, and as a nouveau riche sort of businessman, and as a kind of brash entrepreneur and a character, and he was very famous for that. But then he got even more famous as a TV celebrity for like 15 years, and that's actually really hard, you know, regardless of what you think about it ethically, or, you know, whether you think the kind of entertainment that he did, that he involved himself in, was worthwhile. I don't care about that. That's not my point. My point is that managing that successfully for 15 years is exceptionally unlikely and difficult. And he was extremely famous as a consequence. And that was sort of laden on top of his fame on the business front. And then he became president. And so that's a lot of fame, man. And when that much fame surrounds you, your life is very weird. And the probability that people are going to respond to you in the normal way that helps keep you sane is very low. Especially maybe if you're also an intimidating person to begin with a bit of a proclivity, let's say, towards disagreeableness. Because maybe then you chase away the people who would have enough sense to tell you when you go a little bit too far. Anyways, we were up there in the restaurant, and the place was just buzzing, and then Trump came in, and you could just feel the energy, the electric energy, and I thought, this is not good. This is too much, man. This is too much for anybody to bear. And the thing about the monarchy that's so cool, you know, in the United States, there's the judiciary and the legislative branch and the executive, that separation of powers, and the checks and balances that are part and parcel of that, and that's a great system. And then you also have the states, and they have their power against the federal government, and that stops anything from becoming too tyrannical in principle. But here, and in Canada, although less so in Canada, because we're, you know, modern and trying to dispense with the monarchy, modern, confused, dim-witted, and untraditional, and casual and careless. And then we have the French-English problem, which makes things more complicated on the monarchical front. You have 4 divisions. You have executive, legislative, judicial, and symbolic. And the monarch holds the symbolic weight And that's really smart because it separates it to some degree from the political weight. You see what happens in the United States is, well, first of all, is the president tends to turn into the czar, because they have this idea in the United States now, like first lady. It's like, what the hell is that? We don't have that in Canada. Nobody knows anything about Justin Trudeau's wife. And that's been the history of Canadian politicians. It's like, just because you're Justin Trudeau's wife doesn't mean you're queen. But in the United States, it's like, well, Hillary Clinton, maybe she's queen. And that's partly because there is that demand for the symbolic weight that the leader should manifest. And you also see that to some degree in the United States, which is a star-worshipping culture, obviously, with the glitterati and the royalty of Hollywood. And it's better put there. It's better put there in the entertainment section, even though that's also somewhat dangerous because it tends to elevate actors into pronouncers of ethical virtues, say. But better there than in the political realm. Trump, he's like king and president all rolled up into one. And that's just too much. And so I really admire the monarchical system. And I think that for whatever reason, the UK has done a wonderful job of maintaining that. And I think a very economically canny job too, because I know the economic analysis indicate that the royal family generates way more income than they spend. Because they're a major, and everything they're associated with here is a major tourist attraction. It's this tradition that you have here, this monarchical tradition, is something that's tremendously attractive to people who don't have that. Canadians, for example, Americans, and because it's so theatrical and so unique. And then you have Queen Elizabeth, who, man, I mean, that's quite the woman there. How many, 13 prime ministers? And so you had someone around to intimidate all your prime ministers. That's a really good idea, and I'm sure she did a fine job of that, And so, yeah. And you can imagine how useful it was psychologically, in some sense, for the prime minister who has monarchical temptations in some sense, like Trump did, to have to go on a regular basis to this remarkable person who'd seen this immense span of political history. And
all right, one thing, yeah, I like listening to Jordan, but how old was Queen Elizabeth? Like, how old was she?
She was up there.
Yeah.
They said Prince Charles waited 75 years to inherit the crown. Could just imagine waiting 75 years.
Yeah, like
I would have gave up.
I'm like, damn, 70 something. He waited 75 years just to inherit the crown. Would what push her into her 100?
I want to say she was like 97. That number just seems to make sense.
That's wicked. Like, she lived for a long time, man. She lived for a long time. But let's see what else Jordan got to say, man. It's a 14-minute video. We'll probably stop this at like 10, 11. But I want to hear a little more what he got to say about the Queen's
96.
Huh?
96.
96. Jesus Christ.
confess in some real sense, right? And to be subject to her cautious and wise judgment, because I think she was a woman who was traditional and cautious and wise in the highest degree. And there were scandals in her family, but like, you have a family. If people knew what your family was doing, don't you think there'd be scandals? And so, but she was remarkably free of scandals over that entire period. And that's a hell of a thing to manage for 70 years. And so, well, so what will happen now? Well, the most likely thing is that your monarchy will disintegrate like most of the other ones have. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm certainly not saying I want it to happen. But because that sort of thing is so hard to maintain, especially in the modern world, and because you need someone so remarkable to manage it, the probability that you'll get another one is relatively low. And so I wish your new king the best, that's for sure. But, maybe maybe you'll get lucky, and maybe your monarch, and maybe with your support, will rise to the occasion, and your
I was thinking about that press conference that George W. Bush did. Somebody threw a shoe at his head.
Your country and the rest of the British Commonwealth will recognize that what they have in the shared bonds that unite them based on English common law and the great democratic tradition that's so much a function of this country, and this country really in particular. I mean, you're the birthplace of both Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, India, these amazing countries, these free, democratic, productive, generous societies. It's quite the accomplishment. And I see in England and Europe, but in England too, in Great Britain, such apprehension about that, such refusal to note the greatness of your country and its contributions. I mean, no one in the United States ever talks about the fact that the UK was the country that eradicated slavery. That only happened once in the whole history of the human race. And your country did it. It took 175 years. And a huge economic, yeah. It was your country and the great people who were spearheading that movement at the time that established once and for all on the political and economic front that was not to be tolerated. And then, it took a while for that idea to spread everywhere. It still hasn't, because there's plenty of slaves in the world. The estimate's 30 million at the moment, by the way. But there are very few people who will come out forthrightly and say that it's right, that it's okay, that might makes right. And your country was definitely one of the moral forces in the world, the primary moral force on the political front, who established once and for all that was no longer acceptable. And so, and yet, mostly what characterizes a fair bit of self-image in Great Britain is shame. And every country has things to be ashamed of, but not every country also has things to be proud of. So what do we think? What's going to happen with the Commonwealth? Well, maybe we'll wise up and recognize that we have something absolutely precious to guard. And then maybe we'll guard it. But to do that, we're going to have to defend ourselves against unwarranted accusations of guilt. Not that there's not something to be guilty about, because we're all the beneficiaries of the atrocities of history, and we have to atone for that in our personal behavior. But by the same token, man, you're supposed to separate the wheat from the chaff and not just call it all chaff. And when you look at your own history, you think, we stumbled plenty, but we still walked uphill. And you, in your country, you can say that more than most.
On me, man. Yeah, that's Jordan Peterson for y'all, man. He definitely do much more different things than that. He was just basically giving, his speech on the Queen's passing and all that, because he was in the UK at that time. So he was giving his speech on the Queen's passing. But Jordan gives amazing advice. He gives amazing talks and speeches about, choices that you make in life and where it could possibly lead you, and just ways to better yourself as a person, and like teaches you to stand on yours. He teaches you to stand on your 10 toes and mean what you say and say what you mean, and don't go around pandering and telling people what they want to hear, all that gabba. Like, tell the truth. And if what is happening and you say it and the person don't like it, that's fine. but at least they knew the truth. Don't give them no crap, you know what I'm saying? No, to make them feel good because you're caring about feelings. Because if we continue to care about feelings, is what we're going on, you know what I'm saying? What we're dealing with now in modern day society is it's all about feelings and what we feel. And if I feel like I'm a lady, I can call myself a lady, and it's like, dude, I'm not a woman. I'm biologically a man, and I will always be a man. I don't care how I feel mentally if I did feel that way, which I don't. But I'm just saying, like, we go off of feeling so much in this world, and we're struggling. And as we can see, as a society, our world is struggling terribly. You know what I'm saying? Terribly. So that's Jordan Peterson for you, man. Marcus, you got anything to say about Mr. Jordan Peterson?
Man, that's a very wise man. That is a very wise man. He said a lot. Some big takeaways are you need no people in your corner.
Yeah.
Like you said, you need people to tell you what it is, what it isn't, and things along that nature. Because if you sit up here and nobody ever tells you no, then you become tyrannical and extreme, which we've seen with Kanye.
Yeah.
Definitely seen with several political figures.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely have to have those people in your corner to tell you no. And then it also, like he said, it depends on how the monarchy is going to go now. Like, it's up to them.
Yeah. I sure hope that they don't start, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy, though, that we think about it, man. And I sure hope they don't start disrespecting the king. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they stick to it like they did for the queen. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
With the world we living in now, man, so many people will trash a king before they trash a queen. And it's like, why are we trashing either one of them? It makes no sense to me. So I hope they can at least respect the king now, and you know what I'm saying, let that man rule like he's supposed to rule, and we protect that. Hell, I wish we could go back to the monarch. You know what I'm saying? Because this system that we got going on now is terrible. It's terrible. It's all it is you know what I'm saying? Is who's the most famous person? You know what I'm saying? Like, we just dealing with people that they get in office and they only trying to make their lives better. They're not really even out here for us. Like, every president that got in there did something so that once he gets away from the presidency,
he's making money.
He's making money. That's all of them, all the way from the first to the last. And it's like, this mess that we in now, we need to go to a monarch and let a king rule and go from there. Go from there. Because it's basically what we is now. We just got a bunch of people that work together to pick one person, because we don't pick that person. We already know the Electoral College pick who our president's going to be. We don't pick it. It ain't the popular vote that wins. It's literally an electoral college vote that wins. So we already know how it go. We ain't dumb to the fact. I mean, a lot of people are. A lot of people really think that we pick the president. We don't. I don't give a damn how many people win the popular vote. If we picked the president, Hillary Clinton would have been our president. But see how that went. So, man, that's Jordan Peterson, man. Likes, comments, subscribe. Leave it down in the description box below. Just like the last video, man, we got a free skate giveaway coming up. So comment down in the comment section below, Skate 2022, for your chance to enter for a free pair of skates, man. DNR Skates on the block. So we get into it, man. We're going to bring the skate community back. We're going to get it cracking. Yeah. So, yeah, make sure you leave anything that you got in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit down in the comment section, and let us know how you feel about this video. We got Marcus Maxey up top, Thomas Razor down below. Thank you for showing at another reaction video, man. We're going to get at y'all soon, man.